Well, hello everyone. Thank you for watching. Today I hope you don't have to take sedatives after hearing what I've got to say, but where I'm going to reveal to you how unelected bureaucrats have taken over our government and how our only hope is that governors, I'm calling governors, to stand up and take back the authority the Constitution gave them to govern the people who elected them. You need to contact your governor. You need to let him know that it's time for him to take a stand. Our Congress is basically the same people with the same mindset that America should be ruled by a centralized government, with them being the rulers. Not much has changed since the election. The same players are still there, capitalizing on the United States of America's power surge and also on the finances in the United States Treasury that suit them. Look at where they brought us, and look at where they brought us to. People, we have to understand the difference between communism and America. You must understand the difference between the communism and our Constitution. Great insight today is going to hopefully motivate you. And I'm calling myself now a documented worker, which puts us in the minority. So I'm calling all documented workers to rise and stand your ground. Call your friends and tell them Faye is on. We are once again pulling down the strongholds. I'm Faye Harden, and this is Well, today I'm not going to be able to tell you the whole story in such a short time, but I have compiled a summary of what intercessors with insight have been praying about this year. As I summarized our Face Facts topics, I was amazed at the story it actually told. I've got an email from one of my New Mexico prayer team leaders and could not believe the audacity of a U.S. Senator elected by the people in the state of New Mexico to represent their best interest as citizens of that state. I hope that what I'm getting ready to share with you is going to reveal to you just how brainwashed liberalism has done to elected representatives, especially those that are in cahoots, that are environmentalists. And I'm going to reveal to you how they really think and how they do not believe in the United States Constitution, or they really don't understand it, even though they vow to uphold it. And after I read you this email from a senator in New Mexico, I want you to see what we're really up against. They have, the elected leaders make a vow to uphold this Constitution and to defend it. And it's no wonder that our nation is in the grave danger that it's in. And multi-millions of people are in this country illegally from foreign nations. So many that we really don't know who actually has entered this country unlawfully, or where they're from. You need this Constitution. We offer it to anyone who wants a complimentary copy, and we will furnish them to your clubs, your groups. All you have to do is say, Faye, I want a copy of the Constitution. And after you hear what we're about to say, I know you're going to make that call or write that letter, and we're going to hear from you. Our nation has been placed in grave danger by elected and appointed officials in the high places in our government But we have an answer. It can change. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Visit Faye's website, insightUSA.tv, for information that keeps Christians enlightened and informed. Enter your email address and receive Faye's e-action alerts. Like Faye on Facebook at Facebook/FayeUSA and Twitter #FayeUSA. This broadcast streams online at insightUSA.tv.
I want to share with you something that I got from our New Mexico prayer team leaders, an email that literally just let me see at first hand how accurate we have been with confronting liberal elected leaders. This is a miracle that I think, with this going into the New York Times as an op-ed, hearing the heartbeat of Senator Heinrich from New Mexico, I just want you to, from his words, to see what we're dealing with. If you want to see a plea from an indoctrinated liberal who is supposed to be representing the state of New Mexico, read this. This is what my leader typed with the email. So, of course, I read it. She was saying, an insult to every governor, elected state representative whose allegiance is to the United States Constitution that our nation was founded on. Senator Heinrich talks about the money the feds have to spend and how poor the states are. What a mindset. Taxes belong to the states. They have been looted by the liberals that have been elected to office for so long that everything that the states are allotted, all the income and the permission that states are getting, come with strings attached to enable appointed federal agency secretaries to answer to the president only. They take all of the tax money as though it begins in the federal government. They ignore that it's the United States that takes care of the people in that state. This is an evil empire, and it is coming down. God is waking up people. The miracle has begun. So I want all of New Mexico to wake up, and I want you to see what Senator Heinrich really believes and how he expresses what his job is, and that he is an employee of the federal government to serve the federal government, not the people in the state of New Mexico. The exposure and his connection to the United Nations, mismanaging our nation's business, must immediately come to a halt. I want to read to you the email that the email that I received that shows what Senator Heinrich wrote and how he really feels. He does not recognize the land belongs to the states, nor not the private sector. He thinks land has been confiscated by the federal government, belong to the federal government, and they were just taking what is theirs. It's mind-boggling. It was seized, private land that belonged to the states has been seized by the feds. The states are not the enemy of the federal government, nor are the states the enemy of the people. So it was Heinrich and his buddies, like Harry Reid, that confiscated land and sold it to China, so Harry Reid's son-in-law could cash in big time. So I just want you to see firsthand how one of your senators really thinks and what moves him to do the things that he does, representing the federal government, not the people of his state. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, this is the time for the ingathering, and I'm believing for you to have a marvelous harvest. I've asked 20 of my television viewers to send a check to help us with this ministry for $1,000. Have a special gift package for you, but we want to take this message to the nation. Will you today say, Faye, I believe in what you're doing. I believe we can win this war against Christianity in this nation, and also we will not choose Allah's flag to hang over our White House. We need to get our message out. Today, will you sit down and write a check for $1,000 or more and say, Faye, I want you to stay in the fight. I want the truth to go forth, and I'm not going to look at you anymore, but I'm going to walk with you. I believe that there's someone who could give $100,000. Will you do it today? In gathering, that's what it's about. On October 27th, 2014, Senator Heinrich wrote an op-ed for the New York Times. This is what was emailed to me just a few hours ago, basically, and I was astounded at what I read, and I think you will be too. It was from Albuquerque, and this is what Senator Heinrich wrote in the New York Times. It says, like a rerun of a bad Western, the battle over ownership of America's public lands has revived many a tired and false caricature of those of us whose livelihoods and families are rooted in the open spaces of the West. Now, I want you to take note of the ownership of America's lands, public lands. And I want you to see how the senator sees America. And I want you to take note of public. That means the federal government has taken over these lands. And with Senator Heinrich displaying the fact that the land belongs to the federal government, it is just astounding, because the federal government had to have seized this land in order to claim ownership of it. This land was owned by the states. This land was owned by private property owners. But all of a sudden, what he's concerned about is this. When a script similar to the one used last spring by the Nevada rancher Sylvan Bundy, a small contingent of opportunists, I want you to look at this, a small contingent of Americans who saw through the scam and saw through the land grabs that were being turned over to the federal government by politicians, because they have a more of respect for the United Nations, because that's the covering over our federal lands now, not the U.S. Constitution. And Senator Heinrich calls them opportunistic politicians, and they are vowing to dispose of America's national forests, conservation lands, and open spaces. I want you to look at what he's talking about now. This is the great American land grab. We're going to put this up on your screen. The beginning of major land grabs that began with Bill Clinton and Bruce Babbitt, and the land grabs were unconstitutional, and they had no authority to take this land. That's why the states are taking them back. And the conversation that went on, it says, while claiming to be saving America from corporate influence, unaccountable nonprofit environmentalist groups maintain more than 3,400 full-time employees in Washington, Funding for the advocacy efforts is estimated at $400 million a year, including more than $35 million a year from Pew Charitable Trust alone. And this report, every American should have this report. The land grabs began under President Bill Clinton, and they are still continuing to this day. And what's in this report, it says the Secretary Babbitt, speaking for Clinton administration, accused Montana Governor Mark Riccio of running for a cabinet post in the next administration by suggesting federal policies were in part responsible for the wildfires that were taking place. Mark Babbitt's own defiance of congressional or legislative authority in policy began to confiscate federal lands, and it's been going on ever since. The federal government has lands that it seized from states, and there are people now that are in defiance of those illegal land seizures that's going on in an unprecedented way, and we have talked about a lot of that on this program, especially with Dan Ash and the confiscation of oil land and the millions of acres that they create an endangered species based on scientists' reports that they hire, and then voila, federal land, it's just being seized by the millions and millions of acres. And people are coming on the scene, but this is a senator who represents the people in New Mexico. He is a representative of the state of New Mexico. But what he is saying reveals that his allegiance is to the United Nations, and his allegiance is to the federal government. In other words, the federal government, we have to submit to the federal government, according to this senator who's supposed to be representing his states. He said they want to dispose, no such thing, of America's national forest, conservation lands, and open space. And then he characterizes a United States citizen that just wanted for his cows to go out and graze on the land. The land cost the federal government nothing, and they seized it for control, especially control over our livestock and our farms. And there was a citizen that stood up, and he said, I'm not going this way. Mr. Bundy, whose refusal to pay $1 million in overdue grazing fees, instigated a dangerous standoff with the law enforcement officials. Mr. Bundy stood on his rights and the rights of this Constitution, that the federal government had no right to seize that land, control that land, and the $1 million in grazing fees went to a federal agency. It was collected by the federal agency, it was imposed on by the federal agency, and it was spent by the federal agency. The Congress had absolutely no control. Neither did they have anything to say about it, and this is happening all over the United States with federal agencies. There's a whole new shadow government going on, and the people of the states are under submission to federal agencies that are appointed, not elected, and unaccountable. The confrontation that Mr. Bundy made was within his rights. So I want you to look at a senator that represents the federal government, not the people of the state of New Mexico, and look at those that are coming and saying, the private property you seized, the oil mines that you have, oil wells you've seized, the gold mines that you have seized, the mountains, the forests, the wildlife, all of the wildernesses that you've seized, the water that you're now seizing. There are people in the states that are standing up and they are saying, you will not use federal agencies and bureaucracies that are unelected to control this state ever again. Senator Heinrich says the confrontation made him face of what some say is a renewed sagebrush rebellion to turn America's public lands over to state control. This senator talks about the states as though they are an enemy of the people and the federal government, and he has been elected to represent the citizens' best interest in the state of New Mexico. I want you to wake up, my friends. These federal agencies, I have a list of the amount of money they are allocated. They are allocated by the Congress, billions of dollars that's managed by one unelected bureaucrat. And what they are putting America under submission to, and even now, 34 million ID cards and workers' permits for people that are in this country and remained in this country illegally with no repercussions by our Congress, no repercussions by the White House, the Justice Department, or the State Department, or Homeland Security. That's why I'm telling you, we need the governors to refuse everything that's taking place through federal agencies in their states that are unconstitutional. Governors, you need. Senator Heinrich talks about how broke the states are. They are so broke. Yes, because our tax dollars that are supposed to go into the United States Treasury for states to use for the purposes that are best for the people in that state are being confiscated. They are being looted. They are being taken. And they are being then laundered back if the state will do what the federal agency is telling them to do. Nothing like this except in the Soviet Union happens. Federal lands once were owned by the private sector, private property owners, and the states. It is time for you to stand up, for us to stand our ground, and for the governors to stand their ground and refuse anything unconstitutional that's put on them by federal agencies. Well, we're in the midst of high holy days, whether it's for the Gentile calendar or the Hebrew calendar, and I have a special gift I want my viewers to get. It's the Jerusalem 2015 wall calendar with all of the dates of the Jewish holidays. I'm also putting a list of the Jewish holidays with it and a book that you will never put down, The Wisdom in the Hebrew Months. I cannot put it down. The months, the constellations, the letters, the tribes, and the message. For those who will become partners with me, please call 407-265-0700 and say, Faye, I'm going to pledge $500 or more if you just want the calendar, $100 or more, but partner with me. Help me get this message out. You need to know the signs and the seasons. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our program. It's very informative and it's very bold. But it's time for the people in this country to stand up and know that the governors and the states are to be representative, and our tax dollars need to come to the states to be spent in the best interest of the citizens of those states. I've sent you before the map of the United States. This is how much land that has been seized, I want you to look, by the federal government. They didn't have it to begin. They seized it. And Senator Heinrich says that the states and the people are seizing land from the federal government. What a joke. Also, in my special report, we are addressing so many issues, and you need to get it because the facts are there to enlighten you as to what is really going on. The first one, the takeover of America is almost complete. 34 million ID cards to be dispersed to non-citizens who will be automatically registered as Democrats have already been ordered. Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and Obama, all Democrats, the real threat to America is not Islamic terrorism, it's climate change. 50 billion tax dollars. Nobody knows where it goes, and that is like it was the video that caused Benghazi. The danger within is we were warned in 2001 what was taking place right now, that the national leaders and American people ignored the warnings. Islam became the religion of choice while Christians remained silent. The strategy to undermine America, Muslims' 20-point plan to take over America. In 2011, Avi Lipkin wrote a report and went on television revealing the plans to take over America for Allah. Then we have meet Valerie Jarrett, Obama's advisor, #1 most powerful woman in America, born in Iran. Meet Jay Johnson. You really need to know the connections with Jay Johnson and the enemies of America. And it is illegal to aid and abet an enemy of America. You need to see who Jay Johnson really is and what he's doing. You need to meet the Muslim convert, the CIA director, John Brennan. And we also have the overnight portions of the code of the U.S. immigration laws pertaining to Muslims that provide material support to terrorism. You can say, Faye, how can this be? Today, will you go to your computer or write a check for $1,000? Help me stay on the station.
Faye wants to hear from you. Her desire to see America come out of exile is raising up one of the most powerful, informed, anointed, and united prayer networks in America for America. She is organizing Christians for the U.S. Constitution to give uncompromising believers back their voice and witness. If this program has blessed you and you believe in what Faye is doing, contact her, pray with and for her, partner with her. She would love for you to host an Insight rally in your church or city. Organize an Intercessors with Insight prayer team or join one. For a complimentary pocket-sized constitution or Faye's fax, call or email Faye 407-265-0700 or faye.usainsight@gmail.com. Write Insight USA, P.O. Box 917689, Longwood, Florida 32791.